Okay, so today we're going to do linear momentum and collision. So there's like a couple of bits to this. Linear momentum is not something that I think that most of us would invent. I think it's something that, is introduced to us. It's not, you don't look at an object and say, oh, look at its momentum. You just, you look at it and say, look at its speed or look at its acceleration. But momentum's not something that's obvious, and yet it's incredibly useful. It comes because physics people like to have equations, and an equation has an equal sign, and that means on the left is equal to what's on the right. And yeah, that's in terms of numbers, but it's also in terms of, remember, it's also in terms of dimensions. And it can be literally the left-hand side of a diagram versus the right-hand side of a diagram. Or it can be a time before and a time after. If something is the same, unchanged, then it can be subject to an equation. And for collisions, it's not obvious what is the same or unchanged from the beginning to the end. And it turns out that what is the same or unchanged from the beginning to the end is the momentum. So it's a really useful thing. So we have linear momentum, we have the relationship between linear momentum and force, then we have this is really valuable, the impulse momentum theorem. And then we go on to, using this kind of stuff, we go on to discuss collisions, and then there's a little bit at the end which is kind of like, oh yeah, where we're going to put this, let's put it in the back of this chapter, which is center of mass. So it gets in my notes it's been moved around, and I think in the book it's been moved around, but it's a little bit of a separate issue. So let's talk about linear momentum. It's basically linear momentum, symbol P, little p. Linear momentum is mass times velocity. Momentum, when you multiply a scalar by a vector, you get a vector, so momentum is a vector. It points in the same direction that the velocity does. So what we say is, what is the momentum of a 3 kilogram block traveling at 4 meters per second? You guys can do this. Can you do this for me, please? Let's just get the old brain cells going. So let's stop recording.